Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is David Brooks, the Cadillac Counselor, coming to you to talk to you about the Board of Education. 2022 general election is coming up on November the 8th. Always remember that mail-in ballots will be going out early. Luckily, this time, I hope that they count them all and have them all ready by the date of November 8th, because I'm going to tell you, that wait is a long, long wait. I've already interviewed 3 members of the 7. I've got 3 more to go, and I have one today. And the one that I have today is Miss Rae Gallegher. We're just going to be asking some questions so that you guys can understand what you want to do when you go cast your vote. Always be prepared, always do your research.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, and really also want to commend you on your race during the primary. It was a really tough year to be running for Board of Education, and so you ran a really great race, and it was nice to see some fresh perspectives in the board race this year. So I am a resident of Newmarket. I've lived in Frederick County for about 16 years. I live in Newmarket with my husband and our 2 children who attend FCPS schools. They're in second and fourth grade this year. And really, my family is a big part of my motivation to want to run for the Board of Education this year. You are correct. I was appointed to the Board of Education in 2020 by County Executive Jan Gardner and confirmed into that position by the County Council. And I served just about a year on the Board of Ed, and it was really at the start of the COVID pandemic. And so I was appointed, and then about 6 weeks later, COVID hit the country and everything sort of shut down. And so I was excited to be appointed, had all of these ideas about what I wanted to accomplish with the board. And then, really, the remainder of my term, we really focused on responding to the pandemic. And so decided at the end of last year that I wanted to come back and try again because education is really my passion. I work in education. I work in a nonprofit that partners with schools on social emotional learning and peer mentoring programs for middle school students and high school students. And so I spend a lot of time with educators and in the public education system. And so I think that some of the perspectives that I have given that experience and my commitment to making sure FCPS is a positive place for my kids and all kids to learn and thrive and grow is really why I decided to come back and try to run again this year for the Board
A
of Ed.
lot of people have, made comments about your direction in keeping kids out of school. What would you say to the community that says, "I'm not going to vote for her if that's the way she thinks"? How would you respond to
Yeah.
that?
So, I think especially early on in the pandemic, none of us really knew what the long-term health impacts would be from COVID. And I don't think that we really, as a country, as a society, fully knew how to operate an education system or really any education system in the pandemic. And so during that time, especially early on, ensuring the health and safety and wellness of our students and staff was my top priority and my guiding priority. And then as we got sort of deeper in figuring out the best ways for our teachers and staff to educate during the pandemic. And so, yes, I voted to keep the schools closed initially when we resumed school in, I guess it would have been the fall of 2020. One of my There were 2 primary considerations. One thing that I considered pretty heavily was that our schools were not fully staffed with health personnel. We did not have nurses assigned to schools. And that to me was one of the things that was really concerning if we didn't have health personnel in the schools to be able to help navigate some of the health challenges. That was a big concern for me. And so, working with the health department and listening to their guidance until we got those health personnel in place was a really important decision for me. And then the second thing was considering whether and how our educators would be able to reach students between in-person, virtual, and hybrid models. And so really listening to the feedback about what technology was necessary to be able to effectively teach to multiple populations. We didn't have everything in place that was necessary in terms of that technology, as well as the air purifiers. We have some very old buildings within FCPS that didn't necessarily have the ventilation and circulation systems. And so I felt that we needed to have those things in place. And I made a commitment to our community to consider those aspects. And I stayed true to that commitment in terms of making sure we had things in place. And ultimately, I voted with the board to reopen. It was right after the election, though, and so there was decisions made to reopen based on a lot of those factors, which then went into place. And really, to me, I didn't care about the election in that moment. I was more concerned about the health and safety and well-being and education of our students, and ensuring that we didn't lose all of our staff in the process of making decisions that would have a really broad impact on our education system.
How have you been navigating such a strong and even campaigning, knowing that there's a clear line between the Democrat and Republican Party and how their ideals match up? How is this going to affect the campaign and the voting in the general
This
election?
is such a great question. And to me, education shouldn't be political. Education is for all of our kids, right? We should be focused on safe schools, supportive schools, and schools that are focused on preparing our kids to thrive academically in their careers, in college, whatever their next step may be. Um, the Board of Ed race has become extremely politicized, not just here, but really across the country. And I think we're focusing on the wrong things when we make education political, because there are really important issues that we need to be focused on. The development happening around the county that has resulted in overcrowded buildings and really big class sizes, making sure that we can retain and recruit the best educators and diverse educators into our system, ensuring that our kids are taken care of with their mental health, with their social emotional connections, especially coming back from the pandemic, expanding early childhood education and career and technology education. There's so much that we should be focused on, and instead we're spending a lot of time talking about really highly politicized issues that actually are a really small part of what happens within school buildings, right? And so I really hope that and this is what I talk to about voters too when I'm knocking on doors. I hear a lot of questions around CRT and the health curriculum, social emotional learning, and whether that's become a more politicized term than it needs to be. um, I try and refocus on what the real issues are that I see within schools, and the ways that we need to be supporting our educators, retaining our educators, and focusing on the academics with our students. Of course, we don't need to ignore the other conversations because they're important, but to me, we need to refocus on the realities in our schools and how we can best support our students moving forward.
When looking at the indoctrination group, Education Not Indoctrination, they've really had a lot of conversations about the curriculum and LGBTQ. What would you say in order to help them understand why you have the position you have in terms of the curriculum and LGBTQ?
So this is another topic that comes up a lot knocking on doors. I think similar to the conversation around CRT and the health curriculum. To me, schools should be safe, welcoming places for all students. I think that there's been a hyper focus on the addition of recognizing the variety of ways kids might express gender, right? That's been in addition to the health curriculum for this year. The Education Indoctrination Slate has been putting out some information as well around some of the other aspects of the health curriculum. I think in talking to parents and to other concerned community members, the thing I focus on is, I mean, one, there is an option to opt out. Two, there is an entire committee, the Family Life Advisory Committee, which is a lot of parents and community members, as well as educators, who go in and look at the curriculum, make recommendations around resources. The board reviews those and can have input as well. Parents can have input as well. To me, it's hard. I think I hear a lot from the ENI slate about parent input. There are a lot of parents within FCPS. I'm a parent. I have two children within FCPS. The board really needs to be able to listen to input from a broad range of individuals, of parents who are invested in their children's education, and then make the best decision that's going to create a safe and welcoming environment for all students. And parents have the option to opt out of some of that curriculum if it doesn't align with their own personal or religious beliefs. And I think that that's the right direction, right?
In order to reduce class size, there is so much more that plays a role. We know that. The question that I pose to you is that can we truly pay the teachers whatever the fair amount is, the going rate, Hagerstown, Washington County, Montgomery County, Howard County, and still have reduced classroom sizes? Is there a possible way to make that happen?
I hope so. There's a middle school teacher that I talk to frequently who talks about class sizes of 37 to 40 students in a middle school class. It's You can't build relationships with students. You can't understand what their unique learning needs are, and you can't really meet those needs with 40 middle school students. I mean, middle school is tough enough without having 40 kids together in a classroom. So I believe that it is possible. It might take time. It's going to take a pretty concerted effort budgetarily, which will require a close partnership with the county council and county executive, whoever that may be moving forward. But I don't think we really have a choice. I think we have to do both. We have to retain our teachers, we have to pay them competitive salaries, and we have to figure out what that balance is for class size. I think we also know that there are a number of buildings where, and it's expensive to build new schools, right? We know that too. So to me, one of the potential solutions is looking at ratios of student to teacher and whether you can bring another adult into a classroom. So if you have a certain number of students, let's say that's 37, let's say that's less than that because that's still a lot of kids, then you have two adults in that classroom. And so then you can do some division of, smaller groups and have more individualized attention. I think the other factor is also looking at how many students within that class have IEPs, individual education plans, right? If you have a number of students in that 40 classroom that have unique learning needs that need to be met, we have to figure out ways to meet those. It's expensive though, and so we need to figure out, and of course the board can't raise money in isolation from the county executive and county council. So I think, to me, it would make sense to have a pretty clear plan on what the Board of Ed would recommend to either reduce class size or look at student to adult ratios in class, figure out what that cost is, and then put a plan in place to get there over a certain number of years. Our kids deserve it. Our educators deserve it. And so I think that's something that we can't continue to ignore.
You were bringing up IEPs, and that made me think of the next question. So everybody's continuing to talk about the DOJ, the DOJ decision, the investigation. How did it get to this point that you had to ultimately get rid of the superintendent because there was just no, who should have been paying attention to this?
Everybody should have been paying attention to it. I don't know the answer to how it got to this point. I think that there were clearly some breakdowns in transparency and communication. Um, there were clearly issues with resourcing schools with the appropriate training and staff to be able to meet the needs of our special education students in a way that was not harmful to them. Um, I think that now, probably in retrospect and moving forward, that the board is going to be, or at least should be, requiring a much higher level of reporting. I appreciate and look closely at data, and I think that the board should have probably been looking a little bit closer at this data, and maybe they just didn't think about it, didn't know to be asking. Um, but it's clear that this was an issue, an ongoing issue, and had there maybe been some more clear reporting guidelines back to the BOE in place, then potentially it would not have gotten to this point. But there were some staff, I believe, I mean, clearly within schools, they were aware of the restraint and seclusion that was occurring. Um, my guess is that training and resources and staffing was not adequate to really meet those needs. And there was a breakdown in communication and reporting that maybe had there been a clearer plan in place for that, that it would have been addressed sooner.
The last thing is, why should people vote for you? There's 7 people that are being able, they have the ability to vote for 7 people. Why check your name?
I am really a collaborator. I believe in the power of relationships. I understand that the board, together as 7 members plus the student member, need to work really well together to be able to listen to each other and to collaborate with students, with parents, with our community partners, which there are many that benefit the students of FCPS, to our educators, to our administrators. One of the things that I try to do all of the time is listen, to hear the various perspectives. I am not trying to come into this position to push any particular agenda. I really truly believe in the power of our public education system to reach students, to help them figure out how to critically think, to respond to our curriculum, to grow, to thrive, to enter into productive careers or into college or whatever their next step might be. Um, I think that FCPS is actually a really remarkable school system. Frederick County is a really incredible place to live and to raise kids. And so I really want the opportunity to serve all of our students, to work with and listen to all of our parents, and to find ways to recruit the best and brightest and diverse educators and staff into our system and keep them here, because I think that's what benefits our students the most, is to have people in their schools and their classrooms that reflect them and their community values. And so I really hope that I get the opportunity to serve alongside the current board members and the other folks who are elected this year. I think we have tremendous opportunity to continue um, to make FCPS a really great place for all of our students and our community as a whole.
This is Rae Gallegher. I hope that you listen to her story, to what she has planned, along with the other members of her slate, or you can look at the other slate. It doesn't matter to me which one you do. Just make sure that you pick somebody that you believe is going to do right by these children. That's all I care about. All right. So make sure that you subscribe, always follow, give me some comments because I will ask those questions. And with that being said, I just thank you for always watching, and I hope the best for you and that you live a blessed life. Thank you and have a good day. Bye bye.